Welcome to the video. This one's a little bit different than my usual videos and is similar to my Hawkeye video from last week. This video is just a clip from a podcast I was on recently called Indie Comic Spotlight, hosted by Tony Farina. Tony's podcast looks at indie comics, and if you're like me and you only really read Marvel or DC comics, this is a really good podcast to find some more obscure comics that you wish to read as Tony breaks them down and reviews the comic as a whole. This is just a small clip from the episode I was on recently where we discussed The Walking Dead being a black and white comic and why the creators chose this style to tell their story. I'll put the link in the description of the full episode, and I hope you enjoy this video. And as always, please do subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.
Well, all right, let's talk about that though, that the way that it's drawn. So I've got the names written here because I don't want to say them wrong. So Tony Moore is the cover artist and the artist of Volume 1, and then Charlie Adler takes over, and he's actually listed as co-creator, but he didn't draw the first run. So what did you think about the two contrasting art styles? And then what do you think about just the art in general? It's a black and white book, but it doesn't necessarily feel black and white, which is interesting. I've done a couple of black and white books recently, and I keep realizing how amazing artists can make you forget you're reading a black and white book. Mm. So what do you think about Tony, about Charlie, about the art style in general?
Well, I thought so. Volume 1 is it's illustrated by Tony Moore, isn't it?
Yep.
I think that's the only one he did, isn't it?
I think he did the covers for a while after. Yeah,
did he? Yeah, but he didn't do the actual comics. But I felt there is a subtle change, and I think the art in Volume 1 is the best. It feels, I don't know, like more expansive, more bigger. There's obviously that great panel where Rick is going into Atlanta on the horse. Oof. And he's walking into the city, and obviously one side of the road is full of cars all blocking the road, and obviously the other side coming out of the city is completely empty. And that shot was used in the Walking Dead TV series.
Oh, was it? Nice.
Yeah. Because it's so iconic. I think it's probably the most iconic shot and panel for the show. So I felt that he's art style was just a lot more. It made me feel the world was a lot bigger. I don't know, maybe it was just me, but then obviously when it who did it move to for Volume 2?
Charlie Adler.
Yeah, everything felt more constricted, just a little bit more cramped when he was writing these stories. I didn't feel like there was a big breathing space in the world that was being drawn. That's just kind of my interpretation of it. And I prefer Tony Moore's way, and I like the black and white. I think that was an interesting way to go with it, because you can look at it in a few ways. You could see it as it's kind of like a story that's being retold, through these comics, and it's an old story, and so they've done it in black and white, and I think it adds to kind of that horror aspect that you've got to fill in the blanks, you've got to fill in the color, and kind of what colors are you filling in when you're seeing these people being bit, and when Jim shows off his arm, that he's basically missing a huge chunk out of his arm. I then have to go, well, hold on, I know what they're trying to draw on this page. I've got to imagine that now, instead of me seeing it and going, oh no, I don't want to look at that. I'll just flip the page now. I understand what's happening there. I've physically got to imagine it, and I think that does really add to the horror aspect, that you're asking the reader, what does this look like? And you're people's imaginations do just run. That's the nature of it. So I think it was a really clever decision.
I agree. And one thing Dave said when we were doing, I don't remember what book, but Dave said, colorists are kind of like the unsung heroes. And I agree. And there's some amazing colorists in some of the books that I read where the colorists are like the stars, without a doubt. But I think the choice is, sometimes they're like, well, it's just a financial choice, but this is an image book. This is, Spawn existed for a long. There's plenty of Image money when this came out, so that was a choice, like you said. And I think what I think is really great about the black and white is it, like you said, it ramps up the horror, but it also makes it palatable, so you can fill in the blank, like you mentioned with Jim's cut, or when the horse gets eaten.
Yeah,
you can choose to see that, or you can choose to be like, nope. I'm going to pull away from it. Whereas if there was a colorist there when the zombies attack Rick's horse when he first goes to Atlanta, if the colorist was there, that would be a bloody page.
Yeah.
And then you also get to decide, what does the zombie look like? What is the level of decay? What does it look like when there's a jaw hanging open, or when there's like, and then what does it look like? Because Rick's got a hatchet and he uses that a lot. So what is that? And Tyrese uses a hammer. There's like a couple of panels where it's just the two of them, and it is splattery, and there's snow there too. So there's so much to do. So I think for me, like you said, not only does it give the reader a chance to make it as gory as he or she wants, but it also gives the reader an escape. I think they're doing us a favor by saying, we're not going to overwhelm you because we would like you to turn the page. And by it not being in color, we're giving you the opportunity to tune out if you need to.
I think also be overkill, because obviously there's a lot of swearing, sex, obviously a lot of violence in this comic. And then to say, well, every page is blood and guts as well. I think then you go, well, now I think Kirkman probably looked at them and went, we're going overboard here. It's not what makes the comic good that it's R-rated and it's, you know, it's a bit crude. I think we need to pull a little bit back. And I think making it in black and white is perfect for that.
I agree. I totally agree. And and again, you forget, like you said, because your mind will do what it wants to do. And if your mind wants to see the blood and guts, you will. And if your mind does not, you won't. Yeah. And it's kind of like why I think Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead, the one that's in the mall,
Dawn of the Dead,
is like, you can look, depending on how, obviously, cinematically, he's a way better. I mean, Zack Snyder's really a cinematographer who gets to be a director. So, like,
exactly.
When you look at a Zack Snyder film, you're like, God, this is beautiful. So his Dawn of the Dead is gorgeous, but Romero's Dawn of the Dead is so much better because it isn't as the gore is not cranked up to 20. And I think what Kirkman does, just like you said, is he's like, I bet you that was the conversation. I wonder if that is true. If he was like, whoa, let's dial it down just a little because it is already so intense.
Because I think, because you see it in Hollywood films now, sort of like Birds of Prey, that was R-rated, and it's you have to say, what is this adding to the story? In that, say, like a film like Deadpool and Logan, where they were R-rated, that did add to the story, and that was a part of the story. But something like Birds of Prey, it didn't. You could easily pull that back, and I think that's kind of how Kirkman's looking at it. In that, is the gore necessary to the story? Not necessarily in that, as we say, people can fill in the blanks. So let's pull it back. Let's not go overboard, because people get bored of that quite quickly. You know, I know I do. If I keep seeing blood, gore, swearing, sex, I'm like, well, it's just a bit much now. Like, I don't want to be reading this. This is just too much. So bring something back, and it does add, like the old saying go, less is more.
Yeah, and then for a book for a series that is about the end of the world, it is obviously bloodless because it's black and white, but it's also that's a gift he's giving to us. And I think you're right. It's a way to be temperate. There's a few issues in these first 12 where, there's only one or two zombies even in the book, because again, that's the menace. The zombies are out there. We know they're out there. But not seeing them is sometimes more terrifying than seeing them. Because when you see them, you can be like, okay, here's what they're going to do. When you don't see them, when they're just out there, it's the reason why the Friday the 13th movies on their face are all terrible. But the score, the Jason Voorhees score, is incredible. And because that music just is in the background of those movies, that's why they keep making them. Because people would be like, I don't see Jason. And the Jason is scarier when you don't see him than when you do. When you do see him, it's just like guy in hockey mask, which of course could be terrifying, but knowing he's out there somewhere is way scarier than there he is, I can run that way.